Ask better questions, you get better answers. But there's nowhere in a million years you'll be able to ask those really great what and how questions, such as, well, what was all that about? What did I miss? What's the learning here? What's the opportunity? What don't I know? How else could I look at this? You're never going to ask those questions when you're caught up in that adrenaline and cortisol wave.
So you talk about becoming emotionally dysregulated. I think of the terms fight and flight and rest and digest, or parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems. There are times when clearly you're going to have adrenaline pumping through your body, cortisol pumping through your body. What are the practical things that you do in those high stakes environments to regulate so that you don't nearly blow up every conversation that you or negotiation you're dealing with?
Yeah, it's a good question. And there's some really practical tools that I learned the hard way, but then I've refined them over the years into like muscle memory, right? Emotional regulation, number one skill. But it's not about suppressing and denying these emotions. Far from it. It's being able to identify what are your hot buttons. What really triggers you is the word of the day, really, isn't it? And it's like you don't need a trigger warning. You just need to manage your triggers better. And what I mean by that is when I'll give you a scenario. Let me give you a scenario. So imagine you're stood on a riverbank, all right? And the water flowing in front of you, that's your emotions. And every so often life will push you in the river. That's fine. You get yourself out, you dry yourself off, and you carry on with your day. It's no big deal. But occasionally what happens, we get pushed in, and rather than getting ourselves out, we go for a swim. And then we get carried out to sea, and then we start drowning in the waves of overwhelm, etc. And that's not going to help us. So the practical things that I got taught early on was to observe, but don't absorb. Observe the emotions, whatever they are, but don't allow them to be absorbed. Because what happens is, you, like Steve did, the Yoda did in that first case of mine, he interrupted the pattern. So step one is interrupt the pattern. That could be if you're sat down and you're reading an email, or you see something on social media, or you're having a conversation with a client who's being a bit belligerent, just stand up and go outside, or take some breaths, or have a drink, whatever it is. But you need to interrupt that pattern so you don't start spiraling in that negative loop. So that's the first step. The second step is you're a snowboarder, okay? I'm sure you probably surf as well. It's about riding the wave. So step two is riding the wave. And the wave you're riding is the cortisol and the adrenaline that is pumping through your body. So when you've been activated, when your hot buttons are being pressed, you've got about 90 seconds in which your amygdala's taken over and it's pumping cortisol and adrenaline around your body. You can't stop that. That's just biological fact. But I don't know if it's just you, Will, but in those 90 seconds in the past, that's when I've said something I wish I could kind of get back, or I've pressed send on the text message or the email thinking, I want to kind of get that back. So it's ride the wave. Don't do anything in those 90 seconds at least. And if it's keep going after 90 seconds, all that means is that you're replaying the story in your head. Okay, and that's a separate conversation, really. But so once you've interrupted your pattern, once you've ridden the wave for 90 seconds, feel your feet on the floor. Soles of your feet on the floor. Observe but don't absorb. Imagine you're on the riverbank. Do some breathing exercises, whatever's your thing. And then you can move to step three. Because once you're regulated, once you're balanced and grounded, then you can ask better questions. Ask better questions, you get better answers. But there's nowhere in a million years you'll be able to ask those really great what and how questions, such as, well, what was all that about? What did I miss? What's the learning here? What's the opportunity? What don't I know? How else could I look at this? You're never going to ask those questions when you're caught up in that adrenaline and cortisol wave. So I call that the immediate action drill, the IA drill. I talk about it in the first book. So it's interrupt the pattern, ride the wave, and then ask better questions.
I love that. I often talk about the difference between reacting and responding, which I think is basically the same thing that you've just said there. How many times have we had a situation where we've said something, days later, hours later, minutes later, years later, we go, I wish I hadn't said that. and it's being able to control that response in that moment. The bigger you can make that gap, then the more space that there is.
We call it buying time.
Yeah.
So the kind of the one saying we would use all the time is the purpose of a negotiation is to buy time, particularly when the stakes are high, because the more time you can buy, even if it's just a few seconds or minutes, let alone weeks, days or weeks, is it can allow the emotions to settle, more information and more data to be obtained, and then more time to build trust and rapport and relationships before you then move to problem solving. But certainly it can buy you that few seconds at least where you're right, you respond rather than react, and that's key.
Thank you for listening to North Star Conversations with Will Polston. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Share it with just one person that you think will benefit from it. My North Star is to empower people to transform excuses into results and live a life they love, and this show exists for that purpose, and you can help make that a reality too. By liking, rating, reviewing and sharing the show, you will help the platform algorithms do their thing and get North Star Conversations in front of more people so they can benefit from it too. Make sure you hit subscribe so you get the newest episodes as soon as they're released. Until next time, live a life you love.